Well, we made it. Chapter 19, the final chapter of Never Trust a Zombie. Chapter 19, Moment in the Sun. My shock at the first shot knocks me backward in my chair. Still lying flat on my back, I lift myself up on my elbows and look to Rachel. Are you going to shoot me? I ask. Why would I do that? It took 5 months to get back here. I'll explain in the car. Grab what you need and make it fast. We've got to get moving, Rachel says, rather calmly for someone who just killed her parents, even if they were zombies. I scramble to my feet and start off towards my room, but stop. Don't we need to do something to the bodies? Is a single bullet enough? Rachel says, I'll check them while you get your stuff. If I severed the spinal cord, then it's sufficient. If not, well, either way, they won't recover from this. The virus won't be dead, but the body won't be able to respond enough to keep it alive. The virus will starve to death. At any rate, the locals are all going to freak out when they find them, so we have to get moving now or we'll be found with them, and that won't be as much fun for us. I grab my backpack and dump the remaining notebooks onto the bed. What do you grab when you're making a hasty late evening zombie homicide getaway? I stuff the bag with some clothes and my toothbrush. I grab a folder I keep my legal documents in, but figure I probably won't need it. If I'm not here, when the cops show up, I'll likely become the prime suspect. My identity is as good as garbage, and that seems fitting. My life was ended, and now finally my identity is catching up. It's like I told Dr. Sutton. I'm no longer Eric Sterling, just a shadow of him. I suppose it's time for who I really am to take center stage. I put the folder back on the shelf. When I return to the living room, Rachel has closed the front door and shut off the lights. She grabs my arm and leads me to the back door. Mark is waiting with a car around the corner, she explains while peeking out the window on the door. She looks like she's in a movie. We leave through the back door in full sprint, straight through the backyard, neighbor's yard, and out to the street. No one is outside, but I notice a few faces peeking out behind curtains. The sirens have started and are coming this way from town. When we reach the car, Rachel tells me to take a shotgun. She goes to the driver's door and opens it. The gun is in her hand again. Out, she orders. Rachel, what's going on? What are you doing? Mark asks, fear or anger causing his voice to shake. Change of plans. Get out or I'll shoot you, she says, fixed and calm. Rachel steps back, allowing room for Mark to get out of the car without putting herself within range of a counterattack from the old man. Mark stands up from the car and turns to face Rachel. She pulls the trigger again and the old man falls in a heap. I guess I meant and instead of or, she says. What has she become since I last saw her? She puts the gun in her bag, throws the bag over the driver's seat into the back, and gets in the car. I do the same. Starting the car and shifting the drive in nearly one motion, Rachel sets us on our way out of Cranston, leaving the local authorities to wonder and puzzle. Congrats on being valedictorian. I'm pretty jealous I didn't get to graduate too. I still haven't been able to graduate high school yet, and I've spent nearly 6 years in it. Rachel speaks as though we are friends just out for a drive. Thanks, I say, a little shaken, but due to the quick dissipation of feeling, not as out of sorts as a regular person would be at this point. So that was a lot of killing back there. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? That was nothing. My dad trained me extensively these last few months, she explains. Never trust a zombie, I repeat from earlier. Exactly. It should be my family's motto, Rachel says. You could get it on a t-shirt. Maybe I will. We sit in silence for a few minutes. Rachel has gone through the neighborhoods and back onto Highway 33 North. We are out of Cranston and hitting the uninhabited part of the desert. There won't be any houses or likely any traffic for several miles. There aren't any cars following us, so even if the calls went in describing the car at the scene of the second shooting, we should be safe now. We'll be long gone before they start sweeping the area. There's a CD in my bag. Will you grab it? Rachel asks. Dutifully, I reach back. I reach into the back seat and pull the bag up to my lap. I reach in and feel the barrel of the gun, still warm to the touch. It startles me and I flinch. Then I find the case and remove the CD. It's a collection of songs I made for this drive. I'm glad you're with me for it. The first song is by one of the bands you told me about, Rachel says. I put the CD in and recognize the song immediately. Moment in the Sun by The Living End. I'm pretty good at name that tune. Good choice, I say. As I listen to the lyrics, I realize it's very fitting for this moment. I add, great choice. I figured you'd like it, Rachel says and smiles. After all this happened, she looks like the pale girl I saw on my first day in a new school 5 months ago. So where are we headed? I ask. North. Don't worry about that now. I want to explain what happened after the fire. Shoot. I mean, don't go. This reading stuff's really killing me. All right, let me back up here a little bit. So where are we headed? I ask. North. Don't worry about that now. I want to explain what happened after the fire. Shoot. I mean, go for it. Don't shoot. And then, how do I deliver? Okay, shoot. I mean, go for it. Don't shoot. Stupid colloquialisms. Funny. Well, after you went inside, I got the lighter and the gas cans. I started at the lab side of the house, wrapped around the front, and then to the other side. I doused it good. I was worried over not getting the gas all the way around the house as it left the back door untouched, but it was what it was. It was what it was. So I lit it up and the flames took off. It was pretty crazy. I ran around to the car and realized I didn't have the key. So it actually was fortuitous that the back door wasn't engulfed in flames. I ran back around, opened the door, grabbed the keys from the hook, and returned to the car. By the time I had the car started, I saw Frank coming through the front door. Suddenly, he was thrown to the side, and my dad was standing there. He looked right at me, and I waved frantically for him to come to the car. Mom was right behind him. They ran to the car and got in. I told them I was out for a walk and saw the house on fire and went running back. I shouted for them but didn't hear a response, and I got scared, so I was going to drive for help. Either they believed me or they didn't care. Dad said to drive and get away from Cranston, so I did. My allegiance was never questioned, whether it was to them or to you. We spent the last few months touring the other locations. I tried to gauge the other situations to see if any of the non volunteers they transitioned had the rebellious spirit you did. I don't think any of them do. Mom didn't give you the full details. There are over 100 zombies out there. Of course, most of them volunteered, but even the few who were treated like you don't seem to be fighting it. As for you, I'm glad you made it out. Apparently, Mark had gotten out of the house long enough after my parents that we didn't see him, but not so long that he didn't see the car driving away. He set out on foot towards the slaughterhouse and took one of the trucks from there. He eventually called into the supervisor in Atlanta, who was then able to link him back up with us. It was decided that since you were the only person in Cranston who knew who Mark was, that he could be placed back in town and lay low, providing good intelligence about your situation. He proved to be helpful in that role. Rachel finishes this part of the story and we sit quietly again. Rachel is a much better secret agent than I have given her credit for. It's true, you can't trust a zombie. Which leaves me wondering about my current situation. How do I trust someone who has repeatedly said they can't be trusted? Rachel says, now we come to tonight. My parents decided it was time to check in on you and explain the next portion of the plan. They thought by now you'd have calmed down and would be supportive of their objective. I was pretty sure you wouldn't be, but I almost gave up hope during the conversation. It seemed like you were really going to just give in and go along with them. I almost shot all three of you. So my deception worked on the Sutton women, but not Mr. Sutton, presumably. Why didn't you? I asked. Because when you looked up at me from the floor after you'd fallen backwards, you were smiling. I was? That's news to me. Yes, I knew then that you were still opposed to turning this virus loose on the public. I knew that you were still ready to wear the cape, and that's what I need you to do now, Eric. Wear the cape. I know all of the secure facilities, as my mom liked to call them, where the virus is being harvested. We're going to shut them down. We have a couple of years in theory, but if we get away with tonight's actions, then the schedule might change. Once they find out we eliminated one of their teams, they'll certainly come after us. Do you feel up to the task? Rachel asks. Do I feel up to the task? Are you asking me if I'm prepared to become a superhero? In a way, yes, she says. You said never trust a zombie. How can I know you aren't taking me to the CDC now to turn me in as the one who killed your parents? I guess you don't know. You can't know. You won't know until we take down the first house and you see the freezer full of vials of blood. Even then, you won't know the full story, but you'll see part of it. I'd like for you to trust me, but I don't expect you to. I held true to our arrangement with the fire, at least the first part, but then self preservation took over. That's why you can't trust a zombie. At least not the first wave of us. You are different. You can be trusted. Somehow you didn't lose your regard for other people. That's why I need you to wear the cape. So will you do it? She doesn't let me respond. But really, after all that has happened, if you play this, I don't know if I can trust you bit again, we're going to have trouble, she adds. She makes a strong argument. Now that I've seen what she's capable of, I think it's best to drop my suspicions once and for all. She did just shoot her parents in front of me. What more do I need to see? And if we have a legitimate chance at stopping the virus, then there's no other option for me. College can wait. Besides, I never did get to ask her out on a proper date. She asks through the silence as I contemplate things and then asks, are you in? I'm in, I say, but first, can we stop for milkshakes? That's the end of the book. Just like that, it's over. So I guess I should write a sequel. I started writing a sequel. I got a couple chapters. I started writing it back 10 years ago after I finished it. And then a couple times over the years, I've revisited it after a couple of friends have read it, Josh and Travis, and they both said they wanted a sequel. So I I don't know. I promised I would, but never trust a zombie or me. So I haven't written it yet, but maybe I will. That was my intention with reading this, putting it out on YouTube. Being 10 years since I wrote the book this year, so it's kind of like a 10-year anniversary thing. Maybe I'll finally get around to finishing the sequel. Um, but having read it again is helpful because now I have it all that stuff fresh in my mind. There was a lot of things I thought, like as I was reading it, I thought this isn't going to make sense later on, but I think all of it worked out. I think I explained most of it pretty well. Like I'd forgotten a lot about what I did with Eric's parents as far as killing them and then having them at the house, like I totally forgot that in my mind it was just a car accident. They just killed him. And then so when I was reading the part where they came to see him, I'd totally forgotten all about that. And so I thought, oh no, I got some major inconsistencies here. But so all along I kept thinking this is an inconsistency, but it was just an inconsistency in my memory recall. I think that all of it flows and I don't have any plot holes. But I don't know, maybe I missed some things. So yeah, and this is the copy that I read on YouTube. I wrote on there, and then I'm going to give it to Scott because back some chapters ago when I asked if anybody figured out the not too difficult to figure out, but perhaps difficult to figure out connection between the titles. What was that? Which they're all song titles. Uh, it's like a soundtrack to the book, but not really, because not all songs fit. It's just the names seem to resonate with the intent of the chapter. But anyway, so I'm gonna give this to Scott now because he won. He's the only person that responded, but he was right. He figured it out. So it's his. And now I think that you should go and listen to "Moment in the Sun" by The Living End, which was that song that Rachel played. Uh, I don't know. To me, that song is perfect for this moment when they're driving away. Uh, if this was a movie, if I didn't already write it into the book, then I guess either way, it would be playing in the background as they were having that last conversation. Um, and then after, when the credits roll, that's the song that I want to come on is "Moment in the Sun" by The Living End. So go listen to it and stay tuned or comment if you want me to. If anybody listens to all of these chapters on here, not many people are, if anybody is, because I can see, every video I've done so far has had just a few views, 3 or 4 views, and the time watched is not 100%. So there's a lot of maybe one, perhaps just Scott, maybe one other person who's actually listening to the entire video, listening to the entire chapter. Anybody else that is registering as a view is on there for just a minute or so and not listening. And that could have to do with my poor performance of reading it or whatever, just not interested in it, whatever. But now it's out there on the YouTube, so people can watch it and find it. Maybe I don't know. I never advertise anything, but if people are gonna find it, people are gonna find it. So maybe if you've watched all of them to this point and you just and you liked it, and you let me know. If I start seeing comments of sequel, please, then maybe that'll motivate me more to write it. Maybe it won't, though. I think I just have to be motivated to do it. But I'm going to give it another shot. And if not, maybe I'll just read what I've got written because just so far what I've started gives a little more into where we just left off. But it seems like it's going to be hard to write that story because when I wrote this, I didn't have an outline, and my original plan was to parody Twilight. So I kind of took the basic premise. Okay, you got zombies who can be out in public and during the day, and nobody knows they're zombies. That was the premise, and then the idea of a kid meeting another kid and one of them's a zombie. Um, just like instead of vampires, that was it. And then from there, just I wrote it as I went along. And I think I mentioned before that there was a couple of weeks in between, somewhere around after Eric has transitioned, that I had 3 weeks or so where I didn't write. And then when I got back to it, I didn't go back and read, and so I kind of wrote the story. I took some characters in a different direction, and it was too big of a jump, and so I had to delete a couple of chapters in the middle and rewrite them to bridge the gap from the first half of the story to the ending, because I liked the ending. Somehow I got from the beginning of the story to the ending, but with a change in the characters. So with a little bit of changes, I was able to rewrite just a few chapters in between and keep most of the same stuff. Um, but maybe I don't know. So I started writing the next one. An outline would probably be helpful. I should have been taking notes as I was reading this because I kept thinking things. Okay, this is something I can draw out in the next book if I do a next book. Um, but I don't know. I've thought it through a few times in my mind over the years where I wanted to take it. It's more after reading it now. This time I'm realizing it could be way more involved than I was prepared for. Which meaning it's going to be a lot more work than I was hoping for to write another book. This one was easy. It just happened. Maybe it's not good, and that's why it was easy. I don't know, but um, I don't know. I gotta finish it though, just because I don't have to, but I think it would be fun to do. So I'll give it a shot. Here we go, and we'll see. Maybe in a year from now, I'll be reading Never Trust a Zombie Part 2 to you. I've also, over the years, thought of clever titles for it, or subtitle, like the colon, whatever. Uh, and I didn't write them down. I don't remember what they were. So, all right. Well, if you've listened to this, and if you haven't, if you're listening to this right now, thank you for listening to this. I hope you enjoyed the story. Get it, read it yourself, because it's probably more enjoyable if you read it and not listen to me reading it with all my uh, interjections and laughing and coughing fits and poor delivery, poor performance of English language. All right, and yeah, go on.